Played. All right. Hey, guys. Sorry. I am a father of 4 and a newborn and in school getting 2 degrees and working 3 jobs. So if it looks like I'm just now waking up, I am. I promise. I had my oldest daughter drive with me today because I have about 3 hours of sleep. So I was like, all right, you're my talker. She'll talk I don't know that she breathes the entire ride over here, but it kept me awake, so it was great. It worked great. She brought her boyfriend, who will probably be her husband one day. I don't know. But I love him. I'm just kidding. No, so her and her boyfriend came up with me today, so thank you for your support. Now, if she were in here, she's in the bathroom right now. I just called her out in front of everybody. If she were in here, she would tell you that my children are spoiled. Anyone else have spoiled children? Is it just me? Okay, good. See, the parents who have spoiled children, we know there's no shame. We know we are dealing with it. We know what that causes. We are our own problem. We're aware. When I was growing up, my sister was a spoiled child. When I was growing up, she got whatever she wanted. If we wanted something, we knew that if we asked, it was a no. But if Tiffany asked, it would be a yes. It didn't matter. She could ask for plutonium, and my mom would find a way to get it. If I just asked for a new pair of socks, why? What do you want with socks? What are you going to do with them? I'd wear them, I don't know. Now, it used to make me mad, and I hated that the answer for me would be no, but for Tiffany it would be yes, and I didn't understand it. When I was young, I would be like, when I'm a parent, I won't be that way. When I'm a parent, I'll treat everyone the same because the kids are all the same. No, they're not. I have 4 children at home right now. They're all different. Now, when you're responsible for the well-being and you love and care for your children, you want to do what's best for them. You want to do what benefits them the most. Sometimes this requires us to know what to say when they ask for things. Sometimes we have to say no. There are things that one of my kids could ask for that I would never give to one of the other ones. Let me clarify, because I have 3 daughters now who live at home and 1 newborn son who was up every 20 minutes last night. But I have 3 daughters, 3 very, very different personalities. Mackenzie, she's turning 17 in December. Michaela's 14, and Addie is 10, going on 22. It's crazy in my house. Now, my oldest daughter, Mackenzie, who's hiding in the bathroom right now, she's a straight-A student. She knows what she wants to do in her life. She's known since she was little. Everything is about her future. On the drive over, she explained to me how ATP, I honestly, I don't know. I zoned out about halfway through it. But she explained to me how your muscles contract and relax. And it was very, very scientific. And I'm like, glad you're going to be a doctor. Except for like recently, I think she said she wanted to be an art teacher. But I think she's just seen if it'll make me mad. I was really looking forward to retiring one day, so I really need her to be that doctor. But she's my good kid. Everything is about the future and what she wants in life, and she's driven. And then I have Michaela. She's my athletic one, strong as an ox. I don't wrestle around with her anymore because she beats me up, and it really is a bruise to my ego. Granted, I did fight her the other day for her boyfriend. I was like, don't mess with her. She will hurt you. And he's like, oh, no, I'm a high school wrestler. I'm like, and I'm a grown man, and she beats me up. So he was like, I got to see this. I got to see this. So I lasted all of about 5 minutes, and then I learned I am really big. So I just laid on her, and then she really couldn't move, and that's how I won. It was the only time I've ever won, and it was strictly because of sheer body mass. She's strong. She's my black belt in Taekwondo, track star, volleyball star. She is, if there's something she sets her mind to, she can do it. The problem is, she likes the boys. And the downside is, the boys also like her. So it makes my life very difficult. I'm a very stressed dad. She's very pretty, and, but she can beat him up, though, so that's the only benefit, I guess. And then I have Addison. Addison is like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde if they were 10 foot tall, or 2 foot tall. She's cute as a button, but we joke sometimes that she may be a closet sociopath. I don't, full of love until she's not. She can be the most loving person on the planet. She loves to minister to other people. She shares the gospel with everybody, but her motto really is half holy, half hood. It means pray with me, don't play with me. She will flip on a dime. It's just crazy how different those kids are. One never does anything wrong. One will tell on herself, and the other one will hide the body. It's just very different children. Now, these kids are just so different. In understanding that, I know that I can say yes to one child and no to another on the same request. Mackenzie asked to go out with friends at 10:30 at night. I don't worry about her making bad choices, so I would say yes. If Michaela asks to go anywhere once it's dark outside, I want to know who with, where, are their parents? Is the FBI close by? Are you bringing a camera? I need to know everything. I need to be able to monitor the situation, but probably no. If Michaela wants to go hunting, she's strong and mature and she takes every sport seriously, I would say yes. If Addison wanted to go hunting and be around something that could maim or destroy me, the answer would probably be no, definitely not. It's just because they're different. I know my children, and I know what's best for them. And I know that sometimes no is an appropriate response for me, for the whole community, and for them. And I've found this to be true with our relationship with Christ. Some of us have fallen into the lie that what we want, we are owed. I prayed for it. I am owed it. This is for me. I've prayed it. I should have it right now, regardless of what it is. You know, we start to believe that if we pray, regardless of all factors, it's ours. We want what we want, and sometimes we get mad when we don't get it. Now, I've been there. I've prayed for things, $1 million, been really frustrated when I didn't get it. But I also, had like 13 Netflix subscriptions that I didn't know how to cancel, and I'm sure the Lord was like, you're going to do so well with that blessing, bud. Today, I want to talk about those times when God has to say no. Because just like a parent, sometimes God does things we don't understand. If I tell my kids no, it's, why? But why? Sometimes we get like that with God, and I want to talk about that today. If you have your Bibles, we're going to be bouncing through a few different stories, but we're going to be starting out in 1 Kings 19, and we're going to talk about a time that God had to say no to the prophet Elijah. And if you're taking notes today, one reason God says no is to protect us, and sometimes to protect us from ourselves. I've been through the hard seasons in life. Me and my wife, when we first got married, I think I knew her last name. Maybe. We were partiers. We didn't really even like each other. We had a kid, so we're like, well, I guess we have to get married. And it was a struggle. It was an uphill battle from day one. Neither one of us were saved. When she got saved, I didn't like her very much. Frustrated me a whole lot. I came home and she was throwing away all my rated R movies, all my music. She's going through the refrigerator. Can't have that. No alcohol. I'm like, what are you doing, woman? My whole life I thought was over. And I was so frustrated. And our relationship really just was a constant battle. I finally got on my knees and gave my heart to the Lord after a long drug addiction battle and just a long process. But me and God finally had that one-on-one moment. It changed me. But it didn't change the emotional issues I had in my marriage. There were a lot of things we still had to work through, and it was a struggle. And I remember there was a season when things were hard, and I was praying, God, just let me start over. Let me out of this marriage. Let me start over. Give me a different wife, one that doesn't know my past, one who isn't going to hold everything against me. And I prayed and I prayed and I prayed for this. And God never once honored that prayer. there were times I didn't want to be in this marriage. I was spiritually and emotionally bankrupt. There were times I didn't want to exist because I felt life was just so difficult. And that reminds me of Elijah in 1 Kings 19. Now understand context. He just had a powerful battle with the prophets of Baal. And Elijah fled from Queen Jezebel, who was seeking his life. He was exhausted, discouraged, and afraid. He prayed that God would take his life. And instead of granting this request, God provided food, water, and rest, and in a renewing strength. I'm going to read this to you. It says, while he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, he came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. I have had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. Then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. All at once, an angel touched him and said, get up and eat. He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank and then lay down again. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you. So he got up and ate and drank. Strengthened by that food, he traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. There's times in life where we want to give up. There are times where we want the easy way out. I wanted the easy way out of my marriage. I wanted the easy way out of life because it just seemed simpler. I felt like there was no way that I could come back from where we were to be what I knew God wanted for us. But I was missing the bigger part of that equation. I kept thinking there's no way I can be better. There's no way she can get over my past. There's no way we can get through this. But I kept taking God out of that equation. Elijah under this tree was going, just take my life. But he didn't stop to think that the God he's praying to is the God who can deliver him in a real way. God didn't come down with an angel and go, smite. He came down, sent this angel to renew, restore, refresh. Sometimes the no is for our own benefit. Sometimes the no is to protect us from us. God's no was meant to protect Elijah from despair and remind him of his purpose. God knew Elijah's story was far from over. And then he still had a significant role in his plan. By denying Elijah's request, God preserved him for future victories and assured him of his care. I'm glad God didn't answer my prayer. I'm glad he didn't end my marriage or my life. Instead, he said no and restored and refreshed and renewed my marriage. My wife is now my best friend on the planet. We've had 2 more kids added to our life. We love who we are. We love what God has done for us. And there is nothing more enjoyable than looking at her and laughing and going, one day I used to really not like you. It's hard to remember sometimes because that restoration that God brought through his no was so transformational for us. But sometimes the no is important. Sometimes God says no because it's not his will. Sometimes we pray for things that just don't align with God's will for our life. When my daughter was younger, she used to pray to be a mermaid. Man, I wish she wasn't hiding. I'd like to see her face turn red. When she was young, she would pray to be a mermaid. And she would get so upset that she would wake up in the morning and not have a tail. I had to remind her the bathtub is not big enough for a mermaid. Now she was like 8 at the time, so it's not so bad. It's not like it was yesterday. That would be even more awkward. But we didn't have a bathtub big enough for an 8-year-old mermaid. It didn't matter. But I had to explain to her, baby, God's will for you is not to be a mermaid. If God's will was to create a mermaid for you to be a mermaid, you would have gills. But she wanted it so bad. Sometimes we want things, but it's not God's will for our life. But a real example was my first ministry position. I wanted so badly once I knew what my purpose was, what God knit me together in the womb to do. I knew that I needed to be inner city ministry. I needed to meet with people. I needed to be boots on the ground and see, hey, Mackenzie, hi. You're not a mermaid. I was just sharing with everybody. Sorry. I wanted to be boots on the ground. I wanted to help people meet Jesus. And in my mind, I thought I knew what I wanted, right? I was like, big city, mega church, thousands of students. We're going to build a little army and go out into the streets. It's going to be hype music, and there's going to be lights and smoke and all kinds of awesomeness. And I got an interview in Chicago to be a youth pastor at a very large church out there. But I also got a call back from a itty-bitty, tiny church, like 110 people in East Peoria, Illinois. The pastor was in his 70s. The music was from the 90s. And the mauve carpet hadn't been updated since, well, they put it in 91, but it looked like it was from the 40s. I don't know. And I was like, I know where, I'll go entertain it, but I know where I need to go. It's that big church. It's that big church. And I prayed, God, that's where I want to go. That's where you're going to take me. Take me there. And I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. And in my spirit, I could feel God telling me, no, no, no. So I went to the little old church and we sat in on a service. And then I left and I said, I will never go here. And then I met the lead pastor, Pastor Fred Doty. And Pastor Fred took me out to lunch, and we connected like we were literally two halves of a whole. And I was like, man, your heart is my heart. And I came home and broke my wife's heart, and I was like, babe, I think we're supposed to go to that church you didn't want to go to. And she started crying because she knew we were also supposed to go to that church she didn't want to go to. And we went. And we fell in love with it, and that's our family, and we've been there for 8 years now, going on 9. I think I'm the longest tenured youth pastor in history. It's beautiful, though. I love that community. It's funny, I thought I knew what I wanted, and I thought God's will was to put me in the biggest platform he could so I could do what he called me to do. And it's funny, that church that I applied at in Chicago, they went through 4 youth pastors within the first 2 years. And I was like, whew, thanks, Lord. We like to think that we know God's will better than God. And sometimes we will pray God's will, but really it's just God will you, not God what's your will. You know, I look at even Jesus on Gethsemane. We're in Matthew 26:39, and I'll read it to you. And I want you to see something here, because this is accepting God's will on a large scale. It says, then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, sit here while I go over there and pray. He took Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. Going a little farther, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will. Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. Couldn't you men keep watch with me for 1 hour? He asked Peter. Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. He went up a second time and prayed. My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done. When he came back, he again found them sleeping, and because their eyes were heavy. So he left them and went away once more and prayed that a third time, saying the same thing. Thy will be done. So one night before his crucifixion, Jesus prays for this cup, the crucifixion, to pass from him. Yet God doesn't answer that request. Jesus willingly submits to God's will, saying, not as I will, but as you will. God's no here is essential for the salvation of humanity. It's essential for the narrative to continue forward. God's will here was a must. There's things in our life that are hard, that we don't want to walk through. There are things in life that it may be easier to walk around and not deal with. But the reality is, God sees a far bigger picture than we can see. God knows how every piece of that puzzle fits. God knew that that cup couldn't be taken away. That cup was salvation for all mankind. God knows that the struggle you're walking through today, while it may be hard, His will for you to walk through it may be something that brings blessing to many, many people moving forward. I frequently look at these students. Like I said, I've been here going on 9 years, so I've watched 3 generations of kids come through. The kids in my youth ministry now I've known since they were in children's church. So we look back all the time and think how different life would be if we just took God's will in our hands and did what we wanted. Where would some of these students have been had we just said, no, not today, I know where I want to go. We've been able to pour into kids off the street and watch them walk into full-time ministry. We've seen people healed from drug addiction and pornography, and we've watched families restored and students fall in love and get married, and it's gross, but go on to be in ministry together. It's just been an awesome opportunity to see how God used us when we lived in His will. And it's a constant reminder to me that I never want to find out what it's like to not be in His will. I don't ever want to be the one who says, I know that's God's plan, but I would rather do it my way. I want the attitude of Jesus, saying, not my will, but your will. Not my will, but your will. Sometimes the no we get from God is because we just want our will. God sees the bigger picture. Sometimes God has to give us the no to grow our faith. Understand, sheep bite. In ministry, sometimes there are difficult people, and they bring stress and frustration. Some of you out here right now are that difficult person. Everyone's looking at you. Don't look around. I remember when I first started off in ministry, I honestly had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I'm in it for 9 years. I still have no idea what I'm doing. But I really didn't know then. I came in and I had this big head and I was really cocky and I was like, I don't like what they're doing. They need to go. They need to go. And there was this one leader that everybody had warned me about. She was in children's ministry. And they're like, she's going to do things her way because she's been doing it for the last 40 years. And I'm like, she's going to do it my way or she'll be gone. And me and her butted heads over and over. And I would pray that God would make her quit because Pastor Fred was like, you can't get rid of her. She's a staple. I'm like, remove the staple. I would pray that God would make her quit. She was a thorn in my side. But I tell you what, I prayed for new workers. I watched new people come in and people leave. And she never did. She just stayed and she worked and she loved on kids. And honestly, one day me and her were sitting in the kitchen. And her presence was just frustrating me. And I looked at her and I was like, and she's like, what? I'm like, I want to be mad at you, but you're so sweet. And she was like, then you haven't known me long enough. And I was like, no, I think it's because I have known you so long now that I realize you're a blessing to me. And here's why. I wanted her gone, but she taught me to stand firm. She taught me to be prayerful. It was truly iron sharpens iron, and she was a big chunk of iron. She all the cockiness and the heavy-handedness, she worked right out of me because she was an immovable object. And I learned that sometimes you just need to love people. Sometimes you need to listen. Sometimes gray hair means lots of wisdom. And she is now my biggest advocate. I've been there 9 years. I tell her that she doesn't look a day over 40. I'm also lying. I love you if you're listening. But she's still going strong. She's probably cresting her 80s now and still going strong in kids ministry. And I would have it no other way. She is just an amazing woman of God. But that's what's so awesome. The reality is sometimes God puts people in our path that we think are a thorn in our flesh, but turn out to be a huge blessing in our ministry and in our lives. Sometimes we have to walk through the obstacle and let it rub up against us to get all them burrs off the side of us. I think back to Paul in 2 Corinthians 12:7. It says, "Therefore, in order to keep me from becoming conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me." Now, I may have told her that she was a thorn in my flesh and a messenger of Satan on more than one occasion. And I would be like, it's biblical. It's biblical. But, I read this and I giggle a little because I'm like, man, I feel that. It says, 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my prayer is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sakes, I delight in my weakness, in insults, in hardships, and persecution, and difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Man, it was hard those first few years with her. But the Lord did a great work in both of us. He did a great work in both of us. His grace was sufficient. I needed a little more of it, but it was enough. We got by. But it was amazing to see what God does through that no. My daughter Addison, the one I told you is a closet sociopath, she loves Miss Jane, loves her to death, thinks she's the nicest woman on the planet. My daughter goes to her house. She is like, what do they call the bee catcher people? Miss Jane's a bee catcher person. I forget a beekeeper. Yeah, a beekeeper person. She brings honey. Addie comes home with honey. They go do bee stuff. They go to restaurants. It's so nice to see her connect. And I think, wow, I've had a lot of people come into ministry, but none that wanted to invest into my daughter. I've had a lot of people come through here. I've prayed for the big names and the smiling faces and the young people who are like, yeah, woo, all kinds of energy, but none of them have any interest in pouring into the next generation that way. And she did. And I'm like, man, God, thank you for growing me in this. Thank you for letting me see the value in longevity, the value in people who are there for the right reasons. It changed the whole way I build my leadership team. If you were to look at my youth leadership team, some people may laugh because it's not very youthful. That's okay, because what I have is senior saints who know what it's like to tarry, know what it's like to lay prostrate before the Lord and cry out to God, who know what it means to pray over a student until every bit of their body hurts. I have that, and there is nothing greater than that. God used that little thorn in my flesh to teach me great ministry principles. I would rather have a whole slew of people in walkers who love my students and love the Lord than a bunch of bouncing, jumping heads. God bless what God can do in our lives when we're obedient. Man, I'll take that no every day if it means God's going to grow me like that. It was so awesome to see who he turned me to be through that no. And point 4, the last no, is sometimes God says no because our motives are wrong. We can want the right thing, but for the wrong reasons. If the worship team could come. I remember many years ago, I was praying for a platform. Believe it or not, I know it doesn't look this way because I'm short and chubby and I don't look like a Christian rapper. But I was a Christian rapper and I was linked to, I know, it's funny. I giggle too when I look in the mirror. I was linked up with really successful people. So if you get on my Facebook page, there's pictures of me and Andy Mineo and No Big Deal and a lot of these guys who are doing really big things now. And it was really hard for me to be in the same room with them and be like, and they're like, oh yeah, I did this. And I'm like, I wrapped in my closet in my basement yesterday. It was pretty nice, man. I wanted a platform. I prayed that God would give me a platform, and it never happened when I was praying for it. I wanted the right thing. I wanted to be able to be in front of thousands of students. I wanted to be able to reach people all over the globe. I wanted these things, but I never caught that momentum when I was praying for it. But I wanted it because I wanted to travel. I wanted to be known. I wanted money. I wanted fame. I wanted all these things I perceived to be good for me. I wanted the right thing for the wrong reasons. You know, one day I had a chance encounter with another Christian artist, and it changed my life. My prayers shifted. We were sitting in St. Louis, and we were just finished doing I wasn't even doing the concert. He was doing the concert. I was attending, but we were friends. So we were sitting outside, and I was like, hey, why don't we get out of here and see what we can go get into, see what kind of fun we can have. It's, we're in St. Louis. It sounds like we have all kinds of fun, all kinds of things to do out there. And he was like, I have an idea. And I'm like, what? He's like, let's go to the grocery store. For what? We're in the grocery store. He's like, let's go buy a couple loaves of bread. Like, for what? He's like, we'll get meat, cheese, we'll make sandwiches. I'm like, we could also go to Jack in the Box. There's White Castle here. There are options, my friend. He's like, no, that's not for us. We're going to go make sandwiches, and we're going to drive around St. Louis and feed the homeless. And I'm like, why? And he was like, well, if we don't, who will? And I was like, the people who do that? He goes, we do that. I'm like, you do that? He's like, God gave me a platform to do that. It isn't about me. It's about making him known, not about making me known. This dude preached to me for like 20 minutes, and I was still hungry for a White Castle. But 20 minutes in, and I couldn't even think about food anymore. I was just catching what he was putting down. It's not about me. God's answering your prayer. We're praying the same thing, and God is blessing what you're doing because you're doing it for his kingdom. You're doing it for him to get the glory. It's not about you, and here I am trying to make it about me. I'm trying to make my life better for me, and you're trying to figure out how you can use your platform to help other people. I've been doing it wrong this whole time. Man, that moment changed the way I saw my life. It changed the way I saw my relationship with Jesus. It changed who I am. It changed ministry to me and what that meant. I didn't grow up in church. Ministry to me was Joel Osteen on TV. Like, I didn't know what ministry was. It was so new and so fresh to me. It changed something. Something clicked. And when my heart began to change and I quit praying, God, give me a platform. God, give me money. God, give me this, give me that. God, make it about me. And I started praying, God, show me how I can reach the people around me. Show me how I can use the gift you gave me to go out and change lives. Within 6 months, I signed my first record deal. Within the first year, we'd been to 3 countries and all over the U.S., and God was opening doors right after left because it was no longer about me. My motives have shifted. When it was about me, the answer was no. Now, getting out there and ministering to people is the right thing, but I wanted it for the wrong reasons. And sometimes God has to say no because our motives aren't right. It's not for our glory. It's not our kingdom. It's his kingdom and for his glory. And when I aligned that in my mind and in my heart, God opened the floodgates of yes. But I never would have understood it without the no. James 4:3 says, when you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. I don't want my motive to be for my benefit. I don't want my prayers to be about benefiting me. I'm done saying, God, bless me, bless me, bless me, so I can bless me. God, if you bless me, let me bless others. God, give it to me only so I can give it back to you. God, put it in my pocket so I can pull it out and give it to somebody else. It's not about us. There are people hurting all over our communities. There are families starving in our urban and rural communities. Everywhere you go, there are people in need. And we're praying a lot of times saying, God, just bless me. Bless me. It needs to be, God, help me bless others. Bless me so that I can bless others. And when we're faithful in that, when we're faithful in living God's will and making it about the kingdom, God will take care of us. Let's just take care of God's people. You know, James warns believers about asking for things with selfish motives. It's explained that sometimes prayers are denied because they arise from desires that do not glorify God. I want to glorify God. God's no here is about refining the heart of the believer to pray in alignment with what God's glory is rather than personal gain. This reminds us to examine our motives. When we pray, a no from God can lead us to check whether our requests honor God or serve our selfish interests. I want to honor God. So in closing, we need to trust the wisdom in God's no. We shouldn't fight for the yes. We should listen to the King of Kings. Trust the wisdom in the no. God's no is often a form of guidance or protection or even an invitation to grow closer to Him. And when we encounter God's no, we should remember His character. God doesn't say no because He doesn't love us. God loves us. God doesn't say no because He just doesn't see what we see. God's way wiser. And God's not saying no to throw a wrench in our plans. God's working for our good even when we don't understand it. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. We don't have to understand the no. We just have to live in it, embrace it, and let God lead the way. I encourage all of you, seek God's wisdom. Trust His judgment, knowing that sometimes no leads us to a deeper and a richer life in Christ. Thank you, guys. I just want to take a moment, though. The worship team's going to play a song. Can we just take those few moments to align our heart with God's? Can we take those few moments to pray for that wisdom? Can we take those few moments to pray for the will of God to be done in our life? That God allow us to be who He calls us to be. That God open the pathway and remove the obstacles that we've placed, that we can run straight to Him for His kingdom and for His glory. Let's worship for a moment.